Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. Right. So here, I had the white pieces. Queenside, Queen's Pawn opening, which I've been playing a lot recently, and then F5 is called the Dutch defense. It's a little bit out there. Let's keep playing. C4 is known, and knight f6 might pretty much prove black's point with f5. The knight is developed behind the pawn, and that's strong, especially strong when now the knight is controlling h5, where black wouldn't want white to get in a wily bishop for a check against his king, or a wily queen for a check against his king. So I guess that's kind of a unusual edge unusual edge and approach to this uh, queen's pawn opening. Okay, knight c3, bishop g6. Looks like we're still in book, and I thought, well, you know what? Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do better. Anything you can do. So I played pawn to f3, and we're gonna have a breakthrough on e4 soon, where my pawn's defenders will outnumber the e-pawn's defenders will outnumber black's control, save for maybe some kind of move here, which no, it's not. It's just not there. So black continues with bishop g6, sort of this non fianchettoed position, and after e4, white is going to have better control of the center, especially after the subsequent d5. C towards D all the way here, folks. We have this really awesome pawn chain on the light squares. Add to it a pawn on d4. It's a clump of domination of the center squares here for white. F takes e4 is a logical and strong move, getting at that clump in the center. And now we're starting to see maybe the makings of a partially open game with an open f file. And can black castle king side early enough to have better advantage of that f file than white? Still the move is e takes f4, or sorry, still the move is f takes e4. Still the move is f takes e4. And after kingside castles and bishop c4, there's some danger with the discovered attack, perhaps, against black's king. Let's see if black takes the most honest and direct measures against it to simply move his king out of the discovered attack. That's a good move safety-wise, and on the same token, or at the same time, still leaves white with a phenomenal advantage in controlling the center of the board. Even adding to that, does white have the gall to even add to that already existing strong advantage? He does. Knight f3. And unless you weren't wondering, it develops a piece as well. Unless you weren't wondering. Anyway, pawn to c6, and white sort of ignoring that idea. Probably d takes c6 was best. Let's go to the analysis window and have a look-see at what might have been better for white. D takes c6 is indeed one of the top two moves, close in contention against each other. D takes c6. Bishop to b3, sort of preventing calamity in the future. And then also, where did I saw a bishop move, but now it's been changed to knight to g5. Look, so this is really part of the beauty of chess. These moves are not related to each other. Hardly will a transposition necessarily occur. Sorry. occur from any one of these three different moves. A bishop goes back to greater safety, a knight gets very aggressive, and a pawn cashes in against his own doubling. So this is very different. You play this position with your friends. White has somewhat of an advantage, but if White's here to move, then there's a number of different moves that are all strong. You see, even after Queen E2, Torch recommends that at more than a pawn to White's advantage. So in a space of less than a third of a pawn, there are these 5 moves. This is the thing about chess. We're only in this is at move 9 to play this position. Now this wouldn't be part of a main line or anything like that, because one of the moves to get here was D5, and it looks like White could have really capitalized on this mistake with E5, and then we'd talk about a different thing. But songs from that, playing C6 after Black's or Black's 9th move is C6 here, and there are also many awesome moves. Queen B3 is a move. E5 is a good move. I think it's hard to argue against. Kingside Castles is a good move. I lost all my arrows there. It's at least good. Kingside Castles is at least good. So let me draw these in here, because that's normally not quite so intense about that, but as it really is the purpose of what I'm saying, we're going to draw these all back in here. And the last one is Queen E2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 completely different moves for White to play here. And yet, each good moves, each excellent moves even. So knight e5 was not among those moves. It has certain points about it, though. The knight at e5 is just really aggressive, and captures on c6 would put White in position to play knight f7 check, forking king and queen, but then the rook intercedes, and Black still loses the exchange. And I think what White's showing here, I'm not so worried about the valuation bar right now. What White's showing here is that's this clump of pieces at the center is going to allow for a lot of mobility. All right, a lot of mobility and attacking chances. The Black has knight takes e4 as almost the only strong move here. Knight takes e4, and Torch has queen e2 against that. I'd have to study that for a bit. I'll leave it. I'll open that line here if you want to study it. In terms of the flow of the game, though, it's not all that important. I guess that certain parts about that move I can definitely explain. Knight takes... Did I say e4? Oh, e4. What do we have? Knight takes e4. Instead of... Okay, so let me draw it correctly, and then maybe it'll make sense. This does make sense. Okay, yeah. Knight takes e4, grabbing the pawn, and Black's rook controls the entire f-file. White may not castle. May not castle through check. White may not castle, at least not immediately after knight takes e4. So this is a good or excellent move that does a lot of things all at once. Knight takes e4. There's now an aggressive knight on White's side of the board. Black's bishop has more scope, maybe doubling pawns or just eliminating this very aggressive White knight on e5. That's on its own enough, and White is trapped in the center, at least for the time being. That was a move suggested by Torch 4. E6. Knight takes f6. Bishop takes f6. e6 kind of missed the opportunity of knight takes e4. Trading off that knight. And white hurriedly gets in a castle as best move, as computer best move, on the king's side, and contests the f-file against black. Queen b6. Perhaps bishop h6 right away, because queen takes b2, gathers a pawn, and doesn't threaten all that much else after bishop h6. The rooks and the queen, there's all kinds of defense and having each other's back here on the back rank. The pawn at a2 is defended. It's just there's enough defense, and bishop h6 develops a back rank piece that's not yet developed, plus pressure against the rook that happens to also be defending his bishop, so as to move out of the line of attack to f7. Well, then black loses that rook with check to knight takes f7. So I would say here bishop to h6 is a strong best move. There's other good moves here. Queen b6 was a mistake. How do we take advantage of them? Bishop to e3 was not the greatest of ways, but white is still strongly ahead on the evaluation anyway. So just we note that. Again, like I said before, queen takes b2 does not scare me. It's one pawn for the worse on a board where white has all the center, all the minor piece development against a queen side that hasn't developed. King g7 is a strong way to, as a creative and strong way to show that the bishop on f6 is now protected twice. It discourages any capture that would otherwise make sense. That might make sense. Queen d2 now covers b2, so my opponent's queen is not invading. Also threatens bishop h6 check. Pick up the rook and the exchange along with it. This is like we saw in the game, and my opponent resigns here. Let's finish this game out against practice. Here with white to move. the game is going to be all over. Okay. Okay. Not a very accurate game. That being said, 2 mistakes and 2 inaccuracies isn't all that bad. We need to seriously inaccuracies. No blunders and no misses, so let's copy the PGM and test the same game on Lichess.org. Okay, we think we're gonna be... Yeah, no, that's fine. Lichess finds this as a much more accurate game than that. Alright. Independent evaluators don't always agree. That's why they're independent. Interesting, interesting. So I'll just describe briefly. After move number 16, this is the resigned position. Look, just black is behind too much material. White's gonna liquidate as much material as possible. Even at the cost of a bishop, I'll trade queens because I still have a 6-point material lead, 7-point material lead. Like, White is doing fine even with rook takes e6 here, and then who knows. Some simplifying trades. And I did start. I made a mistake in practice here. I played e7 and lost by rook for nothing. That would make it interesting. However, after e6, and then the nice move, rook c8, using black's pawns against him to force a trade. Now we know that white is going to win. So enough material in White's favor for that to be the case. All right. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Have a great night.